Hello out there. Hi. We're actually here. We meant to be here Friday to talk about The Mandalorian, and it didn't work out because Discord hates us. And then we're late today because Discord hated us again.
Yes.
So it's just been a battle. But I hope everybody out there is doing well, and we're ready to talk Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
Episode 2 Legacy. It's a really long title. Hi Dale, welcome to the chat. But yeah, so for those of you who might just be popping in, you don't really know what's going on. Disney Gallery is, I'm assuming it's going to be a making of all of their shows. Otherwise, I don't know why they would call it Disney Gallery. And it's
Probably.
8 episodes making of The Mandalorian right now. So we're on episode 2, which was called Legacy, which was interesting because when it started with directing, I thought it was going to go to like producing or writing. Like we've been spot on with our guesses about what the series is so far.
You can totally tell that we know someone at Lucasfilm.
Yep.
We know people at Disney. We have the total inside track. We know everything.
You can tell because we're wrong, which is how we hide what we actually know. Because we can't tell you we can't tell you the things we actually know, so then we just tell you incorrect things instead. Hey Cal, hey Ryan, welcome to the chat. But yeah, so
oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we're totally in the trust tree.
We're clearly because we knew
episodes were gonna go.
Right, which is why
we just didn't want to spoil it for you guys.
Exactly, we knew, but you know, totally knew. Which is why next week's gonna be about catering. It'll be a full hour on the catering.
Exactly.
All of the chicken nuggies that were on set. But yeah. So this was called Legacy, and it was really interesting because I felt like this was more of a half hour about Star Wars than it was about The Mandalorian. And even like Lucasfilm and talking about all the patents that George Lucas made. Oh, Gina's volume probably is really low because my settings are from video games. So now her settings will not be there. There we go. Thank you, Cal.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I told you before the stream started, I'm a professional. It's fine. But yeah, so we got talk about Legacy and all this cool stuff, and I knew you must have been really excited, all the heroes journeying they were talking about and all of that good philosophy. I know that's something you get. I mean, I like it too, but you know more about it than I do.
Yeah. Well, not like a super like a bunch, but like unmistakably Star Wars is going through the hero's journey, and so I'm just like, okay, here's where it connects. Root for this, yay! So it was pretty cool to listen to.
Yeah, like even I know his real name, Grief Karga. I know his real name, and I can't think of it right now. But he
Carl Weathers.
Thank you, Carl Weathers. He was just like dropping that information. I was like, dang, man. My dad watched it and he went, hey, Apollo Creed knows philosophy. I was like, there you go.
It's good to know that your on-air talent knows indeed what like the vision is.
Exactly, yeah. It was really funny to get my dad's reactions to this again, because his two reactions was the one was that to Carl Weathers, and then the other one was after that Filoni monologue. My dad went, everybody who doesn't like the prequels should watch this.
Yes.
And I was like, there you go, Dad.
Do you know what I'm convinced about the prequels though? I think people just, and this is kind of like what we were talking about before with like watching Captain Marvel and stuff. I think people just don't watch things and then they just believe the internet, because when I first watched all the Star Wars movies, I looked up what order, and keep in mind this is 2015. Right. I looked up what order I should watch them in, And everyone said, don't watch The Phantom Menace. You don't need it, but you can watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So I saved Phantom Menace for last.
Yeah.
And then I watched it. And then I was like, what is the internet talking about? Yes, I needed this. This is essential and good. And so I think maybe people just like are just like, oh, for the longest time, they say don't watch this.
Yep.
And I'm just like, no, that's a really outdated opinion. Watch this.
I think, I mean, like, of the prequels, Revenge is my favorite, but I honestly think Phantom Menace is the best made of the three. I don't know why, like, I guess it gets hate because they don't like seeing Vader as a little kid and because of Jar Jar, but, like, from a film making perspective, like, I think it was the most solid of the three in that way.
Revenge of the Sith, I go back to for a lot. Like, I like them all.
Yeah.
But Revenge of the Sith, I go back for scenes. Mm-hmm. And The Phantom Menace is probably the one I go back to for, like, the entire movie most often.
That makes sense. I can see that. We went a little bit robot there for a second, but I think people understood. We're, as per usual, we're fighting internet connectivity issues, but I think we're back. You were saying
this is true.
You said it was the one you watch in its entirety.
You are back. I can hear you.
But it was in, like, slow-mo.
No, I can't hear you anymore.
And so you were like, it's the one I watch in its entirety. It was pretty good. It was very slow and dramatic for effect. Or not. Hello?
We are. Hello.
Hey.
You were there and then you were gone.
One day when not everyone's using the internet at once across the entire planet, this will work again.
Pretty much, yeah. But
yeah. So what about that Filoni monologue? Like, when that got going, what was your reaction?
Okay, so this kind of goes to what we were talking about before, a little bit before the stream, when I was like, everyone's like, oh, Dave Filoni's so knowledgeable, etc., etc. Then he goes on the monologue, and then we all become the Pikachu meme because we're just like, oh yeah, he's knowledgeable. I thought about the things that he discussed in this idea of a duel for Anakin's fate, and yet I never thought about any discussed at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So I was just sitting there like a student in a class, like just like the directors, and I was like, yeah, totally, in a different light. And then I saw that someone on Twitter, I don't remember who, overlaid his monologue over the battle. This puts everything in a whole new light. Thank you.
It was great because, like, I hadn't really thought about it in those exact terms either. I think I always assumed Duel of Fates meant, like, dark side, light side. Like, I knew it had to do with Maul and Qui-Gon, but I never really connected it back to Anakin's fate. But it did take us back to, like, a very often asked question. I think if there is a frequently asked question for the prequel trilogy, it's what would have happened to Anakin if Qui-Gon survived? And I've always said that Qui-Gon kind of had to die, otherwise, like, what happened with Anakin, like, Anakin wouldn't have been put in the same kind of position. Oh no, she turned green. This is fascinating. Are you back?
Yeah, all I heard was this is fascinating. But also, what happened to Anakin?
Your screen went completely green.
Oh.
In fact,
no.
You're still not fully back. You're kind of like talking over a freeze frame. Hold on, let me click a button and hope nothing bad happens. All right. Now I can't see you, but can you hear me? Nope. I just broke the stream. Oh, wait. Okay, there you are. We got you back.
Could I hear you perfectly? Yeah.
Okay, we're good. That was just... I was talking about Duel of Fates, and then you turned into...
Oh, you're gone again.
I feel like we're delayed. I think she's a couple of seconds behind me. I don't know why I do that. I just feel like that's a good way to get somebody's attention. Can you hear me? A shout at like you.
Okay, you're breaking up, but I can hear you.
Okay, good. We're back. Because I can hear you.
Okay, that's dope.
Okay. So anyway, I was just saying that I never connected Duel of Fates to specifically Anakin.
Okay. Oh, are you back? There's nothing, and then it goes super fast, and I'm like, oh, things are happening, and I don't know what it is. And now you're frozen.
See, I can hear you, but you're frozen. And now you're unfrozen. And now you're frozen. I never appear frozen on my end, so I get a little confused.
Okay. Are you there?
Mm-hmm. Are you there? Maybe not. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, that's dope. I can hear you.
I think she's typing at me now. Okay, but I occasionally break up and go robot voice. Okay, so then let's have you talk for a hot second while my voice clears up.
Oh. Okay.
Go forth and comment if you would like to. It's great because I can just hear her typing. Baby Yoda makes no sense. So I'm the Night Joker. While we work through these technical problems, why do you think Baby Yoda makes no sense? I mean, he can't talk, so it's a big deal. This is hilarious. You're frozen, so you have no idea what's going on. Okay. I appreciate that I keep telling her that we can hear her, but she's still typing instead of just talking to me.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, that's lovely to hear that you can hear and see me.
Yep.
Blue.
So here we go. How about this? I'll type at her and just be like, so how
you frozen for me?
Were the faces of the other directors?
Oh. Oh, is that what we're going to do just now? You just need to type all your questions. I love it. Good at adapting to things. But also their faces were really, really great. As people who we understand fully are qualified for these jobs and also super into Star Wars, it's kind of nice for them to have their starstruck, like, oh my gosh, maybe I never even thought about this, even as I've watched Star Wars or made a Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So that's always humbling and really, really nice to see.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And it was really affirming for me, too, just as somebody who's a fan of Dave Filoni, to see like these guys be like, wow, Dave Filoni's pretty cool.
Yeah. And also, as someone who likes the prequels, but also someone who likes the animated shows, I can see how both of them would be seen as less than or not have as much value as the sequel trilogy or the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to have someone who is really into the prequels, but also makes the animated shows give off this knowledge. And everyone's like, oh, that totally makes sense. And then I'm like, if you think that makes sense, well, then go watch the animated shows and the prequels then. So that's also really affirming to me.
I could hear you. Sorry. I'm typing to somebody in the chat. But no, I really thought that was cool too, because no shade on Favreau, but like if he was even saying in that documentary, which I was surprised they
said that you can still hear me. I'll let you know that you're frozen.
Okay, sounds good. I was saying that if Favreau wasn't even into Return of the Jedi as a kid, right? Like he probably wasn't as into the prequels. In fact, it's likely that Dave is the only one there who would be. So I agree that it was cool. But it's also nice that Favreau. It is also nice that John and Dave are so connected to animation, so that there are references to the shows.
Like the weirdest stream ever, because it's just like, oh, obviously Gina can't hear, so Jess is gonna type. Bless you for typing.
It makes me be more succinct than I usually would be.
Oh my goodness. I hope it's not confusing for anyone else as you type to me.
I mean, there's 9 people watching in BD.
But still, to you 9, you're all the best. I'm so sorry. It's not always like this. Not always.
It is. Our streams almost always have technical problems. Not even with you. Like, Django and I have had the worst luck. I've interviewed Kevin Scott and David Collins both, and the stream died on both of them, and that was really embarrassing. So after that, I pretty much have no shame left.
Can we talk about how when we're discussing streams dying and technical problems, I can hear you fine, but when you want to talk about Star Wars, I can't hear at all?
Let's code everything we say. So when the stream had the problem of, it's really cool that people who worked on the animated shows worked on the series, because then they could connect to the animated series.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, I had a really cool thing I wanted to discuss with you, and I'm really hoping the internet is going to let it happen. But if you can hear me on your end, the name of this episode is Legacy, right? And they were discussing a lot about how Dave really is a student of George Lucas and knows George Lucas Star Wars. And in the sequel trilogy now, there's a lot of discussion as to, which of the movies are more like George Lucas. I don't know that I know the answer to this question, and maybe it's sacrilegious to ask it. But how long, or should the legacy of Star Wars always be in the vein of George Lucas? Should it always be George Lucas's vision? Should it ever be somebody else's vision, or some combination therein?
Okay. I heard the question. You broke up a little, but I heard the question. I was thinking about the answer to this question, and I've got to be honest, I don't quite know. Okay. Well, now someone's going to mow their lawn right now.
That's what that sounded.
I think up until a certain point, I really, really appreciate it being George Lucas's vision, especially because he knows the most all came from his head. So I understand people wanting to defer to him or get his opinion or things like that. But I do think at some point, I don't know. Not that I want to speak ill of people, but at some point George Lucas is going to be gone, or maybe he's not going to care as much. And then who are you going to go to with your questions? Maybe Dave Filoni.
Right.
But at some point, I think it's okay. I respect everything that came before, and I respect the vision. But as a storyteller who has, say, studied the hero's journey, who has looked at everything that George Lucas has done, I feel informed and empowered enough to take the story this way with respect to what's happening. So I think that is a pretty tough question, but I think it is one that needs to be asked.
Yeah. I think that I would fall somewhere along there with you also. I think that at some level, I always want Star Wars to have like that core of what Star Wars is. I'm not sure that like I'd want it to suddenly change. You know, people talk about before, do you want like ever want an R-rated Star Wars or something? And I kind of feel like maybe a time and a place for that, but maybe not like a theatrical. But that's a whole different thing. But I think at some level, the problem is you can't both want Star Wars that is in the vision of George Lucas and want something new, something excitingly different, something that goes somewhere else. That there has to be a way to kind of find that DNA of Star Wars so that it always feels like Star Wars. But that it can't be to the point where we just watch the same movie over and over and over again. I mean, the number one complaint about The Force Awakens is that it was A New Hope over again, right? And so maybe it's a cop-out answer to say it's got to be somewhere in between, but I do think that while there should always be respect to George's vision, I think Star Wars can be exciting when you let other people put their perspective into it, especially now that we're going away from the Skywalker saga. I think when you're not in an episodes anymore, that really opens up for tone that you can
have. Okay, I'm with you.
You next. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Now.
But I like.
Oh, no, now you're totally gone again.
Okay. I'll type something again. So, what do you think future films like Taika's should be like?
Oh, wow. I feel like that's like a low-key loaded question.
It is.
Because obviously I want it in that thing that whatever feels like Star Wars is. But obviously I want it to be different, which also is something that I just, robotically, grainily heard you talking about. I don't know if this some people, but obviously not copying everything Rian Johnson does because they learned filmmaking differently and they might have different approaches. And obviously we have Taika's episode of The Mandalorian to go off of as well, because it was that perfect combination of his, I think, odd sense of humor that you can see throughout the other things he does. And when he was talking about I think it's a television show, the Shadows television show and things like that. And yet the tone was still very serious, very dramatic, and everything like that. And so I want that to just be in his film. I want them to allow him to let it be weird and make it weird, which in a way Star Wars, I think, is weird because whoever said any of these things had to happen? And yet there's just this Taika-ness that just like, I think takes it to a whole nother level of weird. And I don't want that stifled like at all. I want that creativity to happen. And the reason I brought up Ryan is because I think there's a significant portion of fandom who will say, The Last Jedi doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie, or did he really understand what George was doing? But I think, from his Twitter conversations and things, I think it's proven that he did look into that stuff. He said he watched the Mortar Stark. He did all of these things. And so I do think it feels like Star Wars, and I do think he paid honor to what George Lucas originally wanted, and yet he kept it his own. And I want the same allowance and the same freedom for Taika. So weird Star Wars.
I love weird Star Wars. Like, I fell in love with Solo before I even saw the movie, when I saw the giant space octopus in the trailer. So, like, I'm here for weird. And like, I agree with a lot of that. Like, I think Ryan with Last Jedi made something that does feel different than the other movies, but still feels like Star Wars. In the same way, and this is not, people don't like to admit this, I think The Empire Strikes Back feels different from any other Star Wars movie. And people like that one more so than any of the other ones, right?
Yeah.
And like, this is kind of what I try to tell people too, that if every Star Wars movie, because I mean, obviously there's the people who are like, everything should be like The Last Jedi, and then there's the camp that's like, we didn't want The Last Jedi or whatever. But like, if you are a fan of The Last Jedi like myself, or both of us, that wasn't English, but that's okay. If everything was The Last Jedi, then The Last Jedi is not special, right? If everything's The Empire Strikes Back, The Empire Strikes Back is not special. And so I think there's a point where it's okay to have something that is a slight, detour is not the right word, because then it doesn't seem, I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but you want something that kind of breaks up the tone so that you can appreciate like where everything rests. Like, I bet if you were to ask Ryan, go ahead.
I was gonna say, have you seen Cars, like Pixar's Cars?
I've seen part of it, but no, not in its entirety.
That is okay. I mean, it's a dope movie. You should finish it. But the thing I was gonna say was, the thing I think you were getting at is this idea of like, super important, super efficient, and we need it. Then you have Route 66 past Radiator Springs with all this beautifulness, which is also super important, super efficient, and just as needed. That's the two routes we have. Both places will get you to the Piston Cup, but it just depends on.
Well, there you go. So I like that. I like that a lot. I was gonna say, I bet if you ask Ryan, who like, I bet he would tell you that not every Star Wars movie should be The Last Jedi.
Right.
Nor would JJ tell you that everything should be his films, or that Dave would tell you everything should be what he makes. I think that there's always going to be these different interpretations. Even George's own interpretations of Star Wars changes. I mean, if you go, like, there's a reason why we have, as fans, have spent years trying to rectify what's said about the Force in the original trilogy with the prequel trilogy, and the true reason is George changed his mind. That's the real truth. And the obsessive fans that we are, we've been rapidly adding canon duct tape to it for years, because George was like, well, this is what I believed in when I was young, and now I'm older, and this is what and it's not drastically different, but it's different enough that it doesn't connect perfectly. And so, if you have a difference in vision with the guy who even made it, I think it's fair to say that other people can kind of look at things a little bit differently as well.
Oh, most definitely. That's why when I first got into fandom, it confused me to no end how George Lucas could make the original trilogy and everyone loved it, and also make the prequel trilogy and everyone's like, go away. And I was just like, it's the same mind doing the same thing. And to be honest, today it still confuses me, but I have let it go.
Well, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, is the number of people who like, and if you don't like the Disney movies, fine. If you don't like the sequel trilogy, fine. But like, the number of people who are like, we hate Disney canon, we want Lucas back. I'm just like, I bet you if I go back to 2011 and look at anywhere you posted, you are one of the reasons why George Lucas sold Star Wars. Like, if you spent a decade complaining about the prequel trilogy, I don't really care if you want George Lucas back in the Disney era. Like, I don't like to say that I don't care about people's opinions, but I also, in that case, kind of don't. Because
I feel that
they kind of created the situation they're mad at. And that's kind of how I'm like, this is
But we're talking about
yeah.
I was gonna say, but we're talking about legacy.
We are talking about legacy. Real quick, in the chat, we have somebody, I am the Night Joker, which is a very interesting title, asked the question, and I just wanted to clarify. He said, shouldn't they respect the canon of the core movies? I think we were talking about, like, respecting George's vision. So yeah, I think that it should respect the canon. Like, it should respect that what happened in the 9 movies happened. But, like, tonally and thematically, you can explore other things. Like, not everything has to be centered around Skywalkers. Not every, you could do something that is more specifically a romance than anything we've gotten in Star Wars, or less. It doesn't have to follow the same exact kind of thing, but the events, the canon is events. It's things that happened, objective historical things. It's not tone. It's not emotion. It's not morality, I guess.
You froze. But if you were finished, I just wanted to say that I agree with the parts that did come in that I got to hear. Yes, we have like a canon of things that have happened, and I do think that should be adhered to so that things can make sense. I do enjoy canon.
Yeah.
But I also think that there should be some space given for filmmakers to be able to be allowed to make the different types of films they want. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we might as well just watch the same 9 films we've got over and over again.
Exactly. And then Rebecca in chat says, I like how in Rogue One and Solo they told the story of ordinary people during the wars without force powers acting like Deus Ex Machina. And I think that's perfect. I mean, like, I think you always needed the big stories for the Skywalker saga, which is why I really like the idea of the anthology films. And, like, honestly, as excited as I am that Taika is doing a Star Wars movie, and I am, I'm that much more excited to know that they haven't given up on the anthology films, because it felt like that got backburnered for a while. And I'm just excited to get more Star Wars movies, especially because once you get away from the episodes, they're not all going to be record setters. They're just going to be movies.
Right.
And that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to set records just because it has Star Wars on it. I'm just excited I could still go to the theaters and see a movie.
Yeah, I think there's a perception that's around Star Wars as a big blockbuster, because I remember someone talking about Solo and they were like, I don't know how much money it made. We'll just say it's in the millions. And someone said it only made millions of dollars. And I was like, well, if only I could make millions of dollars.
They were saying that about Rise of Skywalker. There's that one guy from Forbes who writes like a new article every week about how Rise of Skywalker was a financial failure, and it's like the financial failure. And I'm like, if my biggest financial failure was making $1 billion, I'm okay with that.
Exactly. So yeah, I am very much okay with new Star Wars stories, and I'm also very much okay with hearing, like, not small as in unimportant, but I think, it's dope seeing the everyday story, because on the grand scheme, we have this whole plan, everything happened, and then it's like, well, how does that big master plan, affect the small guy? I like to hear that. So I'm definitely pumped we have anthology films and the small stuff.
Yep, I agree. I'm all there. I'm totally there for it. And I kind of, we're talking about legacy from George to Dave, but I'm also kind of excited to see where inevitably, like, what will be the legacy of the stories we're getting now. And I was sharing some stuff on Twitter about how, like, I'm excited to eventually hear about, like, Luke and Lando hunting for Sith artifacts. Like, where's that story? Because I want to read that by now. And like there's so many things in the sequel trilogy that we haven't, like stories that have been referenced that we haven't gotten yet. And it's really exciting to just kind of go back and think about stuff that, I mean, before the Clone Wars, we didn't know that Anakin had a Padawan, and I was really apprehensive about the series because that was new. And so there's also going to be kind of this legacy of eventually these stories will be reinvented, even though that canon will be like recognized. There's still things that can change, and so I'm kind of excited to see how the story will kind of grow and unfold over time.
Right.
We're getting there. We're talking in between the lawn mowing.
This is true. I don't. They came like 2 days ago. I don't know why they're here.
The
but
grass
okay.
is growing really, really fast. Let me see. What else? I had some other stuff.
Well, I had a question for you.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. So one of the things that Kathleen Kennedy was talking about was she asked our or not our directors, but everyone around the table, what movie experience did you have that was like, okay, I'm gonna do this?
Yeah.
Meaning, getting into filmmaking, whatever avenue they were in. So I was curious for you, what maybe it can be either or both. What Star Wars experience did you had that was like, okay, I want to do something like this channel, Star Wars Twitter, etc., or what movie experience in general did you have that said, I'm into this?
She got super robot there for a second. Okay, so I'll do the Star Wars answer. So I'll talk about what kind of got me into fandom, which was long before I started the channel. I grew up always liking Star Wars ever since I was a little kid. Like I have memories of playing Star Wars, but I didn't necessarily like it more than anything else. I just liked it a lot. And then the point where it kind of went from me just being a movie fan and an action movie fan to like me being an obsessive fan of Star Wars was really around Revenge of the Sith. And that's part of why I don't like to actually openly say my rankings, but Revenge will probably always be my favorite Star Wars movie because it's the movie that my fandom bloomed around. And I think that's actually pretty normal for a lot of people. But not that it's Revenge, but their favorite is the one that their fandom bloomed around. And I remembered I liked Star Wars enough that I had watched the Empires of Dreams documentary. And so I knew that Return of the Jedi was originally called, or not originally, but was briefly called Revenge of the Jedi. And I remember we were on vacation, and it was about a year out before Episode 3. And there was a newspaper, if you remember what newspapers are. And I picked it up because they had just announced, this is how old school it was. I learned the title of a Star Wars movie from a newspaper. I was on vacation and there was a newspaper and there was a story. This is the title of the next Star Wars film, the last Star Wars film, and it was going to be called Revenge of the Sith. And somehow a switch flipped in that moment. Me recognizing how it being called Revenge of the Sith was like significant, like something just sparked. And the next year I was obsessed. I think I watched a Star Wars film a day. Like every day I would watch 45612, 45612, 45612, and I watched a Star movie like for a year. Basically, unless there was something going on, I watched a Star Wars movie a day. And like I've never truly written fan fiction, but I came up with my own Star Wars character who was in the background. It was like a tag and dink sort of thing. And so like I knew how she would fit in the background of all the movies, and so I'd watch them, and it was fun. And then I saw Revenge, and then it was like, then I got into the books and the games and the comics, and it was all downhill. And that's really what sparked, that was really my Star Wars moment. Wasn't even watching the movies, it was reading the title of Revenge of the Sith in a newspaper.
Oh my god, I love everything about that. And also, you should write fan fiction. Even if you never share it. Okay. I want the fan fiction.
Oh man, how about you? What was your I fell in love with Star Wars experience?
So mine was I was watching Disney Channel in my dorm room in college, and it was in October, and I got a TV spot for The Force Awakens, and it was that moment when Kylo, turns around and he stops the like bolt in the air, and I was like, "Well, who are you?" And I was like, I need to know everything about these young gentlemen. And so I had sworn off Star Wars before, I told you, because I thought it was scary. But then I went and I got them all because I was like, what if he's related or connected to someone in the original or prequel trilogies? Which is a good thing that I asked myself that question because,
Little did you know that asking yourself the question, what if they're related to someone, would become a very important question for Star Wars in general.
Yes. I'm sorry, all of it is my fault. And so watching all of the original trilogy and all the prequel, like in one setting in one night, I woke up. It's like so I had a headache for 2 days, but I also was obsessed. After that, literally everything was about Star Wars for me, to the point that like after I saw The Force Awakens that like January, people were like, "Oh, Gina, you're so knowledgeable. You know so much." And I'm just like, "Really?" Because half of me's faking it, and I also just got here. But I blame a TV spot and the fact that I fall asleep to television that I am so, and also Kylo Ren, that I'm so obsessed with.
I see, and that makes me so excited because I always get excited whenever people become fans as like adults, like I guess, or at least not 5-year-olds. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't. I'm almost 30 and I don't consider myself an adult, but like not 5. And because I think there's always a worry for me when I show it to people because it's so ridiculous. Like I try to tell people, sit down and watch A New Hope with blank eyes and look at the cantina, and there's like a walrus man and there's like a blue-headed dude. Like that movie is weird. A New Hope is weird. It's really, really, really weird. Like, and so I'm just always worried people are gonna watch this and go, "What is this acid trip you're trying to make me watch?" And so, and so anytime somebody gets into it as like grown-ups, I get so excited. Like it's like, yes, you don't need to be a kid to fall in love with it.
Yeah. I remember my best friend had never seen Star Wars and she wanted to see Solo because she liked Donald Glover. And so I took her to see Solo and she was like, "This is amazing." And then I was like, "You know what we're doing for the rest of the summer?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Watching the rest of Star Wars." And then she absolutely loved it. I thought I would have to give a warning that was like, okay, now this was made, like in the 70s and 80s. It's going to look older.
Yeah.
She was just like, just put it in. Just put the DVD in. I was like, love you.
One of my favorite memories is a former coworker of mine. His first Star Wars movie was The Force Awakens. And he went because his friends went. Like, he didn't necessarily have, like, an interest in seeing it, but they were all going. So he saw Force Awakens, and then he knew I was really into Star Wars. And he's like, "Can I, like, borrow these?" I was like, "Sure." And he decided to watch them chronologically after that point. Because just, and I was like, "Well, you kind of like know the big stuff, right? Like you've heard like Darth Vader's." He's like, "Yeah, I know like the big stuff. It's fine." So like, well, if you know the big stuff, just watch them in chronological order. There's not going to be like any big, you'll have more fun. So he watched Phantom. He liked it. He watched Attack of Clones. He liked it. It was Revenge of the Sith, and he came in the day after he watched Revenge of the Sith, and the look on his face, and I was like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "I watched the movie." I'm like, "Okay," and he's like, "I knew that Darth Vader was Luke's father, but I didn't know Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker." And I was like, "Oh!" And he was wrecked. Like, he was internally a mess. And like, he didn't know the Chancellor was the Emperor. Like, he had no idea. So he went into Revenge of the Sith with no idea what was happening. And like, he was a broken man.
Oh my gosh.
And that is why I'm such a fierce proponent of like chronological order has rights.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So my friend who that summer I had taken her to see Star Wars, I asked her if she knew everything. And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Luke and Leia are twins." And she was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And then after that, I just refused to discuss anything with her because I was like, well, what if you also don't know X, Y, or Z?
Right. You just gotta take it in and enjoy it.
My goodness. That's amazing.
It was so good. It was one of my favorite memories. It's just like that look. He just came in like, oh. I'm like, just like Revenge of the Sith is rough on me, and I've seen it 5,000 times. I can't imagine going into that movie. No idea. Like, just you think you're walking into something that's as light and fun as the Phantom Menace, or even though there's darker stuff in Attack of the Clones, it's not like everything's horrible. And then you get to Revenge of the Sith, like no warning. I can't even imagine. We lost her again. Come back. Well, anyway, let's see. What do we got going on in chat? Sorry, guys. I've been ignoring you a little bit. Welcome, police. Nice to see you here. Just glad. Yeah, Cal, I know you were a big Rey Palpatine proponent. Should make this, like, just me until she comes back, so we're not, like, awkwardly looking at her freeze frame. There we go. Score of Revenge is good. Puli says, yes, you can fall in love with Star Wars as an adult. Watch your first movie at 30. Not even the movies, but the Clone Wars. That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Are you back? You might be back. It's slowly thinking about letting her come back. And then Rebecca Raven, which, by the way, good to see you here, saw Star Wars when you were 24 and it changed your life. That's fantastic. Okay, Gina's kind of back.
Yep, kind of back.
Kind of back. There we go.
Congrats to whoever was 24 and Star Wars changed your life. I was only 18, 20, 19, something like that.
You're about Rey's age.
Oh my gosh, that just got way more emotional.
That's what gets me every time I watch these movies. I sit there and I remind myself, like, Rey is basically 20. She's doing all of this.
She's been through so. I think we forget that, like, all the time. She's been through so much, and she's only like 20.
She's got so much. She got so much to go on. But yeah. No, I think there's always that moment where you just like fall in love with Star Wars, and I don't even know. And it's so interesting to me to see how it happens. I mean, like, one of my favorite moments on Star Wars Twitter ever was the weekend of Mar, like Labor Day weekend, I think it was, where she live tweeted. Oh, if you guys aren't on Twitter, there was a lady who had never seen Star Wars before, and saw like a Reylo gif, and was like, "Who are these people?" And then she like watched the movies, and just live tweeted them, and it was one of the most magical experiences of my life. Like, I was so excited, and like, I had been it was at the point where we're all getting ready for Rise of Skywalker, and I was like terrified because I'd been burned from not liking Endgame, and I was terrified I wasn't gonna like Rise of Skywalker either. And like, I don't know if you guys remember, but like, it was just a horrible time of speculation, and everyone was fighting, which is every day. And then that weekend happened, and I was like, nope, I don't even care. Like, I don't even care. This is what it's about, is like times like this where we're all just really excited and taking the movie in.
I think part of it, though, is everyone kind of wishes they could go back to the moment they first fell in love with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they first got into Star Wars. And so in that moment, we were all like living vicariously. And I was like, oh, remember what it was like before you knew any facts, before you argued with people, and you just enjoyed a movie? Isn't this a great feeling?
Yeah. It's just when you didn't know anything and it was wonderful that you didn't know anything, you're like, what is this? I remember being a kid and like, before I got into reading the book, because like that year where I obsessively watched a Star Wars movie a day, I looked into the books and I knew just enough to know that some of the older books contradicted the prequel trilogy. And so then I decided I wasn't going to read anything until I saw all of the movies. So I was going to wait till Revenge came out before I got into the expanding universe. And so what I did instead was I read the Star Wars data bank. So I was reading like Star Wars encyclopedia entries, like who is everyone, and oh man. Oh, Rebecca said I was shocked that Vader was Luke's dad. That's wild. And like, what's funny is that reveal was not universally loved when it came out either. The Vader reveal. Funny how that works. But again, I say that for other people who are like, oh, The Last Jedi did blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, well, give it 10 years when it's the new Empire Strikes Back, and we'll see if we're all still debating it. But that's fine. Like, and he chopped off Luke's
hand. I have another question for you.
Yeah.
So this is it was kind of me going off of things that Rick was saying, but what makes Star Wars special to you? Like, what makes it like, oh, this is the thing I want to spend most of my time talking with people, engaging people with about, versus like other things talk about, but like this is the most like thing closest to my heart, or is it?
Well, I mean, if this is not the thing closest, I would hate to see what my other walls look like. So, but you know, that's a great question. I think part of it is probably for me, like when I found it, because it wasn't my first obsession, and I've been obsessed with other things, but not to the same degree. But I think a lot of it is the scope. I've kind of like talked about this before. When you look at other franchises, like at the end of the day, if you take something like Harry Potter, like at the end of the day, it's named for Harry Potter, and like yeah, they have the wizarding world or whatever they've tried to call it, but like for people who just like have the base understanding, it's always going to be like Harry Potter, and then there's the Harry Potter movies that don't have Harry Potter in it, and like it kind of contains the story to or like Pirates of the Caribbean is always going to be, you know, about pirates in the Caribbean. But then you go into something like the superhero universes, and those have that kind of scope too. And I think like if I had found Marvel or DC as comics instead of Star Wars, maybe I'd have a very different channel right now. But like for me with Star Wars is there's everything. Like there's religious stories, there's pilot stories, there's heist stories, there's racing stories, there's, you know, you have romance, but it's not only romance. It's just everywhere. And I think it's what I connect to in Star Wars the most too is the Jedi. I have a strong bias towards the Jedi. If you see any of my rants, she froze again a little bit, so I'm just gonna move so we don't. Oh, are you back? Maybe not. I don't really care if she's frozen on the screen, but if it's not the most flattering screenshot, I feel rude leaving it up, is the thing. But like, I also just really like the Jedi, and I think for me, I don't always bring it into the channel because it's not necessarily relevant to Star Wars discussion. But like a big part of my life is my faith, and like I'm a Christian, and like that's a big thing for me. And so like the fact that there's this sci-fi space element, but it has this deep spiritual connection is something that really resonates with me too. And so it is this scope. I'm not limited to just like following one character. I can follow all of these different kinds of characters. But then the fictional thing that I'm most obsessed with in my life can connect to like the actual thing that I draw the most of my identity from. And I like that as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I heard the majority of that. So yay to all of it.
How about you? Let me throw the same question at you.
One of the things that really got me into it is my parents were into it. And so we started this tradition of going to see a movie every Christmas and every Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And my dad had already told us that Star Wars: The Force Awakens was going to be our Christmas movie. And I was like, I don't care, which is wild for me to think now that I was like, I don't care. And then after I became obsessed and I told him I was obsessed, he was like, okay, yes. Because everyone in my family likes it, but like maybe my dad are like intense with our like.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember this one time I was talking to my older sister and I was talking about something and she goes, Gina, we don't all pee the force like you do. Okay, calm down. And I was like, okay, well, okay. And I was like, that's how I knew that I was like way up there with my love for it. But I remember my dad was coming to pick me up from my first year away from college. And on a whim, we looked up if The Force Awakens was playing, because that was back when I didn't know that movies played like Thursday when they came out that Friday. And so we saw it early. And that is one of my favorite memories that I have. I vividly remember like sitting in the theater with just my dad and like crying as it starts. And I was like, I made it. I'm a Star Wars fan. And then going later to see it with my family. And so one of the things that makes Star Wars so special to me is this idea that family is really important and found family is really important and integral to the story. And it's something that I very much got to share with my real family. And then I'm also very similar to you. I like it when things get to connect to my Christian faith, but I'm also super into mythology and learning about other things and this idea of mysticism. And I feel like I feel like anything can happen with the Force, which is why I think conversations where people are like, well, are you using the Force correctly are so hilarious, because I'm just like, well, who says they're not using the Force? It's the Force.
It's the Force.
Surrounds and blinds us. It can do anything.
That's not how the Force works. It's one of my all-time favorite Star Wars lines. Just all-time favorite Star Wars.
It's a good line. And then I think the other thing is, it's something that it literally, there's something in there for everyone. And I think that's one of the things you were saying, whether it's like super, super high stakes adventures, super like deep philosophy. And then I think the other thing is I didn't have like a super deep attachment to it before. And then suddenly my attachment comes out of nowhere. I think about what you were saying when it comes to the Marvel movies. And after Endgame, I found it very difficult to get into whatever the next phase of Marvel is, because I didn't grow up reading the comics. So to me, even though the Avengers we got in the Avengers movie aren't like the original lineup, I guess, to me, those are the Avengers. And I was like, well, who are these other heroes that don't matter to me? My six are gone and their friends are gone.
Like, why is this other person?
And so exactly. And so like, yeah, I'm going to go see those movies and they're fine. But because I had this weird, like not weird, but like deep attachment, it was hard to move on. But because my love for Star Wars just smacked me in the middle of the face out of nowhere, like as an adult, I was just like, yeah, give it to me all. I don't care. I want all the stories. Let's go. And I dig that.
I think that's fun too, because I think about it and my parents are also the ones who introduced me to Star Wars, and like they liked it, but my dad's a movie buff. Like my dad just likes movies, so my dad's seen just about every movie ever. And so he was really into Star Wars because he's a movie guy more than he's a sci-fi guy. And I have this memory of this, I have this box set, which is like the only non-specialized versions of the movies I have. And I remember being little and wanting to watch them, and I was not allowed to watch Star Wars unless it was with my dad. Not because of like parental controls, not because it was scary. He didn't want me to like mess up the boxes. Like he thought I would like crush the cardboard boxes. So to preserve the movies, I was only allowed to watch them with him. And then the special editions came out, and then he bought me my own set. So then I had like the special edition set, and those were mine, and I could watch them whenever I wanted. And if I broke the cardboard on the boxes, then that was like my fault.
We're on the verge of greatness.
Oh, someone subscribed. Thank you. And also welcome to Jacob in the chat, and thank you, Radwan, for subscribing. But like, so that's really why I'm more into the special editions than the unspecialized, because like I was 7 when those came out, and like those were my set. But it's just so funny. And then years later, my parents were having a garage sale, and I walk over, and what's in the garage sale but the dang boxes of like the unspecialized Star Wars movies for like $2 or something. And I was like, excuse me, like, these crucial things that you were afraid I was going to get bubble gum on, you're just going to sell in the garage sale? So then I took them. And so it was funny because, like, my folks were into Star Wars, but, like, then I just, like, whoosh, past them in the fandom. So, like, they're really supportive of this, which I'm really shocked that they are, but they're, like, I'm pretty sure their perspective is I'm not doing drugs, and so it's fine. I think, like, that's pretty much just how they view it. And so they're very supportive. They actually went to Celebration with me, which was fun. But, like, they mostly now are into Star Wars because they're desperately trying to talk to me about literally anything. It's like, we can connect about Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. She froze. But anyway, yeah, that's my family connection to it. Is we're all into it as a family, but I'm the obsessive, and they're like, there's worse hobbies you could have, so it's fine.
Do you know what I think is so interesting about the special editions versus the theatrical release? So when I went to go get them from my library, so I went to my school campus's library, and I'm pretty sure they were like bootleg versions, because there were so many copies of the DVD like in the case, and some of them weren't like official. It had like writing on it, and I remember watching them, and I guess some were the like theatrical release and some were the special edition, because I was watching it and everything was great, and then later I was watching it again with other people, and I was like, that's not what I remember happening, or that's slightly different, and it was like just enough that I was like, yeah, let's still go with the movie. And then like later in life, I heard people discussing like the different versions, and I was like, did I watch a copy of that and not even know it? And people are just like crying because they don't have it. And I'm just like, I guess my library had it and someone burned a copy of it somehow. It looked great. And I just had no idea that I was watching, like, going back and forth between them until like later in life.
That's amazing. Jacob in the chat says Force Awakens was his first Star Wars movie he saw in theaters, which is awesome. Like, and that's, again, I'm so like,
We're the same.
I love it. I love the sequel trilogy, bringing it more. No, talking about the different versions. When I was younger, I just watched A New Hope over and over again. Parts of Empire kind of scared me, and Return of the Jedi terrified me. And it's funny because that's the one they always talk about, like, little kids loving because of the Ewoks. But the Emperor, I couldn't watch the end. Like, my folks would come in and find me hiding behind furniture because the Emperor was so scary. So when I was little, when I was watching the theatrical versions, I would never watch the theatrical version of Return of the Jedi, and I wouldn't even watch the special edition one for a long time. And it's ironic because this is, again, me showing I shouldn't say, Return of the Jedi is my favorite of the originals. And now, which is just funny to me. But I remember I was a teenager before I saw the theatrical version of Return of the Jedi when I took the movies away from my dad's garage sale. Maybe I would have been like almost not a teen at that point. I don't remember. Anyway, I popped it in just to watch it, and I heard Yub Nub for the first time because I'd only ever heard like the victory celebration and like the nice music. And so then I'm watching it, and all of a sudden it's like Yub Nub, eat chop, Yub Nub, and I remember where it was, and I watched it, and I curled up in a ball, and I started laughing hysterically. Like, there were tears streaming down my eyes. I was laughing so freaking hard at. And I'm like, this was the end of the movie? And it was just like,
oh my gosh.
I can't. I have this book somewhere. This book's amazing. This is the Star Wars Galactic Phrase Book and Travel Guide. If you don't have it, this is one of my best recommendations I can have. And it's got like Gungan and Jawaese and Huttese and binary in it, and then like the whole back third is just Ben Burtt deciding how he, or talking about how he designed Star Wars. But it has like the lyrics to Yub Nub in here somewhere. And so then
that's amazing.
And so like I got so obsessed with it, I just started memorize. For a while, I had Yub Nub memorized. I don't have it fully memorized anymore, but I used to just like sing it at school.
I love everything about that. That's amazing.
I just walk around saying, yep. God, I remember some of it. It was just really funny. Anyway. But now whenever
Oh my
somebody's like,
gosh.
Yum Num is better than the victory celebration, I'm like, okay. Maybe. Sure it is.
I think it's really, really interesting that Return of the Jedi scared you, since Empire Strikes Back scared me, which I don't anymore tell people my rankings, but this is a safe space. So like Empire Strikes Back is actually like one of my last ones.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because that's the one that scared me and stopped me from wanting to watch, and it was Han being frozen in the carbonite,
Yes,
which is so hilarious
terrifying.
because I like had nightmares. I was like, I'm about to be frozen in this. I hate these movies. They're awful. Don't give me this anymore. And so that's why when the trailer came out for the first time for The Mandalorian, back when I didn't know if I was going to be into it, and they had that moment, I was like, stop it. Don't traumatize me again. I'm in this fandom now. But then I was like, okay. But yeah, I just like that distinct memory. I'm just like, no, thank you.
I love that so much. It's so wild, like what we pick up on in these movies, though. Like,
mm-hmm. Which is also hilarious because I don't have kids.
Yeah.
But I hang out with people who do have kids, and they're like, oh, you know, I haven't let my kids see the end of Revenge of the Sith yet. I'm just like, why? It's so good. The ending is dramatic. And then I remember what happens, and
he
I'm like,
burns alive.
Oh yeah, wait. I'm like, oh yeah, you should wait until they're older. So my luck, eventually when I have kids, I'm probably going to introduce them to Star Wars way too early, like my parents did for me.
Yep.
And it's okay, because I'll just know when they go off to college and they make another Star Wars movie,
they'll be fine.
They'll get into it.
My poor hypothetical future children, I would be the person who, they're always like, oh, what movie are you going to show your kids first? I'm like, as if I'm going to stop watching them while they're babies until they're old enough to watch them. Like, what world do you think I live in? So, like, I'm going to have, like, a 6-month-old watching, like, Anakin burn up. They can't see. Six-month-olds can't see. It's fine. And so, like, it's true, they can't. And, like, younger than that, everything's upside down and the entire world is terrifying. So, like, it's fine. But, like, I could just see that being an issue. It'll last, but with what'll happen is, because I believe in karma, I used to, like, keep my parents up all night because every movie scared me. And, like, I wouldn't even go get them. I would sit in my bed and, like, kick the frame of my bed until they would come in.
Oh. It's gonna happen to you.
It's gonna happen to me. I'm gonna have some poor kid who can just never sleep, and I'm gonna go, this is my penance for being afraid of everything.
I don't know when you got your glasses, but I got my glasses when I was like a toddler, like before school started, because I was blind. And so with luck, my kid, I don't want my kid to have vision problems, never mind. But if I happen to pass on vision problems to my kid, it'll just be like a blurry burning scene, and they won't know what's happening. It'll just be like, I don't know what that is. And I'm just going to be like, shh, it's okay.
I always joke that have you ever seen the movie Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh my goodness, no.
Oh, it's good. He plays an undercover cop who has to, like, pretend he's a kindergarten teacher. So it's Arnold Schwarzenegger teaching kindergartners. You need to see this movie. It's one of the most amazing movies of all time. Anyway, I won't
rent it.
I won't spoil one of the best scenes for you, but for those of you who have seen the movie, there's a scene with show and tell, and there's a little precocious boy who says something. That's my hypothetical future son. Because that's how
I'm gonna watch this movie.
And you'll get to that kid and you'll go, yes, that is Jess's future son.
Okay, I'm pumped.
So
I'm gonna watch this movie.
Hopefully you can report back soon with your review of Kindergarten Cop.
Who needs episode 3 of Disney's Gallery of the Mandalorian when you can hear my review of Kindergarten Cop?
I've been saying, this is the first time I've actually said this on the channel, but I've been talking with Django a lot because we've been toying with the idea, which I'll say this and it'll be like another 2 years before we do this, but we've been toying with the idea of if we ever started a Patreon. And I'm like, I don't know what Patreon content I would make because I barely have time for, like, the content I make now. And, but I've joked around with the idea of doing reviews for like TV shows that I've never seen, and like have like literally picking an episode in the middle of the series at random for a series I've never seen, and then reviewing that episode like once a month.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing.
And so pretty much if we ever start a Patreon, most likely the exclusive content won't even be Star Wars related, because I'll feel guilty like not putting Star Wars content out for everybody, and I'll be like, well, if you give me $1 a month, you can see my review of Breaking Bad season 3 episode 5 and me talking about it.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Yes, please subscribe to your fictional Patreon account
that I don't have. But anyway, if you're watching this and that sounds like content you would love to see, let me know. But that's just one of my ideas. Oh, and Ryan says his first Star Wars movie in theaters was Attack of the Clones, which is awesome.
Oh, dope. I wonder. Yeah, I'd still be in a Star Wars if I watched Attack of the Clones first. That'd be dope.
I believe strongly that if you were going to be a Star Wars fan, it doesn't really matter which one you watch first. That like at the end of the day, you accept that there's this wacky thing that's taking place in space with weird aliens, or you don't. And you could probably start with any of the movies, and be fine. But I think my first Star Wars movie in theaters was technically A New Hope, but it was the special edition re-release of A New Hope. I saw 4 and 5 re-released in theaters, and then I'm sure my parents didn't take me to Return of the Jedi because of the whole Emperor scaring me thing, and I didn't see that one. Yeah. I've never seen that one in theaters, and then I saw prequels in theaters.
You know, I count re-releases because if I didn't, then I would have only seen... So for people on the stream who don't know, I'm obsessed with Mad Max Fury Road. It's like my favorite movie ever. And I saw it one time in theaters when it first came out, because I had to convince my parents to let me go see it because it was rated R. And then after that, I saw it like the last day you could see it on theaters, and then after that, every single time I've gone to see it, it's because someone put it back in theaters. Now I'm just like, woo, like 3 times seeing Mad Max, let's go. So re-releases count, guys.
There you go. They count. That's awesome. That's a good movie too. It's another good one. But yeah, so I feel like we kept kind of going off. Like none of this was really about the Mandalorian, but like at the same time, I feel like the making of the Mandalorian was not really much about the Mandalorian.
That's also true, but in a vein, it was, because the whole entire episode discussed George Lucas's legacy and how we interpret it.
That's true.
Other fandoms as a lens.
That's true. And like I said, obviously it grew into a lot of things. I'm here completely branded, even to the point of having my Galaxy's Edge hat on.
I remember when I told my parents that I do this sometimes, they were just like, oh, okay. And I was like, thanks for the support, guys. And then I actually, like, on our, like, Amazon Fire Stick, whatever it's called, I actually showed them the Tross one.
Oh, there you go.
And they were like, what, Gina, you're on the screen? And I was like, yes, parents, I told you that I do this sometimes. And they were like, but Gina, that's our house. And I was like, yes, parents, I told you. And then they looked at your background and they were like, whoa, she's a fan. I was like, yeah, she is. So yeah, it grew and it's noticeable.
I love that. That's great. I'm not into gatekeeping. I don't think you have to like own a bunch of books to be a super fan, but I do kind of laugh whenever I talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, usually I just kind of let them talk, because usually by I'm a big fan, they mean that they've seen the movies a bunch of times, which totally counts. But then they like start telling me their theories that they've totally read on Reddit, and I just keep to myself all of the ways that it doesn't work. Actually, you know what is the weirdest theory anyone has ever told you? Like just total random person. Could be Twitter, but really like maybe just random interaction with a person where they've like, this is my Star Wars headcanon.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I'd have to think about that. Give me a second. You tell me yours.
I'll tell you. I will never forget this moment, ever. It was it was Last Jedi, I can't remember. It probably was not the first time I saw it. It was probably the second time I saw The Last Jedi, but it was still like opening weekend. And the lights went up after the credits, and there's this guy who was sitting in front of me. He stood up, I stood up. We've never met, no interactions. There was no hello. He just looks at me and he goes, "So we can agree that DJ is Ezra, right?"
Oh, I heard that one before. I don't get it, but I've heard it.
And I just stared at him like, I'm pretty sure I like, and I try really hard to be polite to people, but I just looked at him and went, "Ezra has force powers." And he's like, "Well, he probably forgot them." And I was like, okay. And mostly I just didn't want to have that conversation. And so I just agreed so that he would go away.
I don't. It's hilarious. I don't. Also reminds me of something I have to tell you off stream. Okay. I don't think I've ever heard like a super weird out there headcanon or idea. I remember someone once told me that Luke and Leia were actually Obi-Wan's kids, but I was like, but we have the rest of the movies now and the original, you don't have to know. And they were like, but let me tell you. And I was like, but the movies exist. You can't say that to me. like this was when Disney acquired it. I was like, but the original, that's what started it. No. And so that was weird. And then the one that I actually got on board with though was someone said that Finn was going to be force sensitive, and I was like, yes, please. And then they're right. Yeah. And then someone was like, okay, but Finn Skywalker, and I was like, yes. And so since The Force Awakens, I've been saying Finn Skywalker.
I mean, I'm for it.
And even to this day, I still say Finn Skywalker.
I love it. So. I really want, and I know, like, I think it would be amazing if Skywalker just became like the foundling name for all Jedi children that don't have a last name. Like, well, you're all Skywalkers now.
I feel that. And for those in the chat, like 3 months ago, I would have said no. But I talked to Jess, and now I say, yes, please, give it to me. I need a book. I'll even take a comic.
I love it. In the chat, Rebecca says, Disney says season 2 of Mandalorian is not going to be delayed from COVID. That is great news. And Jacob says, technically the first Star Wars movie he saw in theaters was the Clone Wars movie. I do not think that counts, though. It counts. I saw the Clone Wars movie in theaters. I went to the midnight premiere of the Clone Wars movie. There were 7 of us in the theater. And 3 of them came with me. And, like, one of them was my dad who had to drive me. And you know what? It counts. That's all I'm going to say. I was there.
Do you know?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the really popular like full up theater experiences are super fun. In fact, sometimes I'll pick like a 7:00 like Friday showing just because I want to be with a bunch of people. But showings where there's like only you and your friends or like very few people are also pretty good. Actually, this is, by the way, I'm someone who goes to the movies by myself like all the time. But like it's pretty fun.
I've started going to the movies all by myself now because I work weird hours, so I get out of work in plenty of time to go to matinees. So like I go to like noon movies by myself all the time.
Yes.
Just because like no one else is free at noon to go to movies with me, so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go. But yeah, like I think I saw the first Lego movie with one of my best friends, and we were one of the only people in there, and that was great because we were just laughing through the whole movie. That's another thing you guys might not know about me. Have you seen any of the Lego movies? I
have seen the first one, and I saw a Lego Batman movie, and that's it.
Too. So Lego and Lego Batman are great. I've never seen Ninjago. It must not have been as good because it never really got circulated. But Lego Movie 2, I almost want to like take a break for like once from doing Star Wars stuff and do like a video about lessons we can learn about fandom from the Lego Movie 2. Like, it's low-key the movie everyone should watch because it's so applicable to things, and like no one saw it, but it's so good. But anyway, that's my other plug. So like, watch Kindergarten Cop and the Lego Movie too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's on the list. Also, there's your Patreon content again.
Sign up for my non-existent Patreon to hear me talk about the Lego movies. Even though I don't even really play with Lego, I just really like the movies. We got, do you think we will have comics books related to Disney Plus series like The Mandalorian or Cassian? I hope so. I also hope so.
I also hope so. I think I was surprised that we didn't, but I was also surprised we didn't have background on The Mandalorian, and then here we are with background on The Mandalorian. Yeah. So I feel like they probably were just waiting for a specific time. What time? I do not. Well, I know because you probably wouldn't, not compete. I feel like that's the wrong word.
Right.
But got the High Republic stuff first, so you want to focus on that initiative, that launch, not get it out the way, but get it out the way, and then I don't know if COVID would mess up things like that, but I assume that on a calendar somewhere they were like, and here's where we're going to have all this things. So I want it and I hope we get it. They'll release it and we'll be like, oh yeah, we get it right now. That's great.
I feel like part of the reason why we haven't gotten it too is they might want to tell those stories in the show. Because like, I feel like the way that we got the backstories about Din, like, throughout the different episodes were them not wanting us to see it all. Obviously, they don't want us to know everything about the child yet. It's probably the same with Kara. So, like, I hope we get that stuff, but I think they're waiting for us to know more about the characters before we get it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, we've been going an hour and 20 minutes, and 20 of that was probably like, can you hear me?
The beginning of the stream is going to be the most interesting thing in the world because it's just like, can't hear you. Oh, someone's typing. What's happening? If you make it through, you might get gold. I call this gold.
There you go. And then just me transcribing what I'm saying. It's good times.
I love this.
Good times. We're just here to have fun. When I started the channel, I was like really freakish about like everything needed to be great or like start on time. And now I'm kind of like, or it could not, and it'll be okay.
Or it could not.
It's fine.
Well, I'm glad I can contribute to that, or it could not.
Dude, like, we used to have so many stream problems until, like, I'm getting old, Jess. Is that the getting old side? I turned 30 in a couple of months, so it's just starting to hit me. Have you ever seen the show Portlandia?
No, well, I've seen scenes.
Yeah, like,
but not horrible.
I never watched like the last 2 seasons, I think, which is a long story. It's weird I never finished it because I'm fully obsessed with that show, and I keep meaning to like watch the last 2 seasons, but I'm always like, I'm gonna rewatch the whole show before I do, and then I just don't make it back. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But there's a sketch with Fred Armisen, and he goes to the doctor, and he's diagnosed with early onset grumpiness. It's one of the funniest things. Is like, well, when you go places and you see people, he's like, do you ever tell people to get off your lawn? You're like, no. Well, yeah, if they're on, but not in like an old van, like, this is my property. Get off of it. I'm not like, get off my lawn. And it was just like, I'll send it to you. It's really funny. Anyway.
It sounds funny. So for people, before we get on, like fully on the stream, Jess will hear me go, oh, my bones. My bones. I'm an old man. So as a 23-year-old, I fully embrace the fact that my bones creak and I'm old.
Just from now on, just tell people you have early onset grumpiness and they'll go, oh, what's that? I definitely have early onset grumpiness, but I don't know that it's my age as much as I'm always tired. I think I get like 5-6 hours of sleep a night, and I'm too old for that, and so I'm always grumpy. I'm too old for that, but I'm not old enough to actually be responsible with my sleep schedule, so here I am.
I love it.
Anyway, after this really relevant Star Wars discussion stream, it's like, by the time you are 66 and retired, you don't have to care about time at all. That sounds great. That I can just play.
I mean,
XCOM
time currently means nothing.
Before the stream, we were going to start the stream earlier, and like the time totally went by, and I was like, I was playing XCOM 2, and I wasn't watching the clock. Yes, makes sense. Thanks for the stream. To both of us, looking forward to the next one. Next one will, at least the next one with both of us will be Mando again. I will probably do KOTOR sometime this week. And one of these days, I'll actually do something that is not a KOTOR stream or these streams. Well, these will also exist, but one of these days I will also do something other than these. But that's the whole I'm tired and grouchy all of the time thing that's really keeping me from. No, that's a lie. It's my XCOM 2 addiction. That's why. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm letting you down and failing. That's okay.
You're letting none of us down.
But if you don't already check it out, I also have, there's another YouTube channel, youtube.com/YodaBauer, where I play non-Star Wars games like XCOM 2. If you ever want to come hang out for those too, I always like talking to people. But thank you, Gina, for joining us again. Of course, you can also hear her on Unmistakably Star Wars, which is another great Star Wars podcast with a lot of people that I adore, by the way. So definitely worth it. And other than that, we'll talk about, the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, the catering, here soon. The joke will be on all of you when that is an episode. Anyway, have a good day, everybody.